finance is a buying opportunity with a stop under 525. I have two sectors which I think viewers may like to focus on. The first is PSU banks, and the second is metals.
Okay, fair enough. Those definitely would be moved by global markets, but today we don't have the global markets to, get some kind of a direction. Thank you very much, Sudarshan and Mitesh. We will come to you after the pre-opening settles down. Well, on the other side, we will also be joined by the Managing Director and CEO of the NSE, that is Ashish Kumar Chauhan, Managing Director of Kotak Mahindra, AMC, Nilesh Shah, and Gautam Chowcharia of UBS. They all come to you live from NSE, from that brilliant set we showed you at the National Stock Exchange. Back in a jiffy.
NATO must play a much stronger role in the Arctic region, in the High North, including in and around Greenland, something we have been actually requesting for a long time. But until NATO's Arctic Sentry mission is in place, participation in the ongoing exercise, as you were just talking about, Arctic Endurance, is very important. It has to be, of course, in close cooperation with all NATO allies. And I would like to underline that the quick and substantial French contribution has been highly appreciated from Greenland and Denmark. Finally, let me emphasize that in a situation where the world order as we have known it is under pressure, it's changing rapidly, maybe it's gone, then we need a...
We will be joined by top tax experts with their take on the tax angle. Voices from the North Block, Chief Economic Advisor, V.
Not counting outliers, I mean, actually, there are outlying rates like 40, 70 and all, which I'm not taking into this reckoning. There would be moderation of rates. And my expectation is that the rates would come down to 4.
8 to 4.
8 to 4.
I believe that the STT must go. It is high time it should go because, now let me explain that. We brought it in 2004 as a substitute for long-term capital gains tax on equities. We reintroduced long-term capital gains tax on equity in 2018.
Yeah.
2 years back, we enhanced the rate of tax out there. Now what we have is a situation where the long-term capital gains taxes are substantial, are fairly of a large amount. There doesn't seem to be any legitimacy remaining in continuing with the STT any longer.
Meanwhile, Samir Arora from Helios Capital shares that he does not have any very high conviction expectations from the budget, while Nilesh Shah of Kotak AMC says that the budget will be positive if the government prioritizes on infra investment. Let's listen in.
No expectations. Maybe we keep hearing that they may do something on long-term capital gains for some FIIs, which may be defined as some endowments or universities or long-term, some X thing. So what happens is if I keep thinking myself that it's so logical that long-term capital gains should be reduced, then I start believing it myself. So mostly my thinking is they will not do it. Still for everybody, don't do it only for FIs. Just reduce for everybody to 7.5 or ideally to 0. And you change STT a little bit because on the other hand, separately we keep saying, although we own all these exchange stocks that, the volumes are too high, speculation is too high. Just if you so want, or let it be for 5-7 years and then decide after that.
Do the trinity of impossible. Please continue to spend money on infrastructure because private investment is subdued. To fund that infrastructure spending and to maintain the fiscal deficit commitment which you have given, please raise money through non-tax revenue. It could be asset monetization, it could be strategic divestment, or it could be out-of-box idea like a gold disclosure, gold monetization scheme, which gives money to the government and brings gold, silver lying in the tijori into the bazaar.
All right, now you know what the street is expecting, what the policymakers are expecting, and at the same time, what the experts are expecting as well. Take a short break, come back on the other side. We'll get you what the market is expecting and what the market setup is on the other side of this budget breakfast.
On Venezuelan crude. But, let's go back to the budget, Prashant. And what we do now know is that Part B of the budget is going to be more significant or is going to be equally significant. So, one, I imagine or I assume that we're probably going to see a long budget. Is it going to be longer than usual? I'm not sure. But Part B is going to be important. It's going to lay out not just short-term objectives of the government, but a long-term vision. So perhaps high on intent, high on signaling and direction. That is what Part B is going to focus on. And here's my hunch. And again, the evidence doesn't bear it out, especially if you look at the last few years. But my hunch is that maybe this is going to be the budget that the government's disinvestment spirits are revived. The economic survey certainly seemed to give that indication. And remember, the economic survey and the budget have seen a significant convergence in the last 2 years. Will this be a hat trick is the big question, Prashant.
Very good point to make, Shireen. Because I remember Pranab Mukherjee saying that he has nothing to do with the economic survey. That is the economist's ideal vision of India. And we will keep that in mind as we go, making long-term policies. But for the budget, he has to stitch the expenses and the revenues. He almost said to that effect that I don't hold them at all back when they write the survey. Let them have that vision for India, which we will follow in course of time. But that's not the way, as you point out, the current dispensation has worked. They have worked in concert, and that's why this indispensability feasibility table, which the chief economic advisor put out on page 639 of the survey. I think that's very important. It gives an idea of maybe APIs, maybe power, nuclear products or ecosystem. All these telecom equipment for national security, all this could get some kind of a fillip. I take your point on that. We should be closely watching that. But Shireen, we'll come back to you. There's a guest waiting. Vikash Kumar Jain of CLSA joins us. Vikash, good morning. Market expectations from the budget are very low. Can the budget surprise positively? And in what way?
I have this proprietary investor sentiment gauge, and you're right. It was very close to hitting extreme bearish sentiment just last week, and that is which tells us that yes, sentiment, expectations are very low going into this budget. Can it really surprise? Yes. What will count as a surprise when expectations are so low is a discussion point. But can it really surprise in terms of being a significantly positive budget from the way the market looks at things, where the market at times is very impatient. It wants things to happen immediately. Honestly, I don't think that's how the government is looking at things. Maybe rightly so also. They would want to focus on a slightly more longer term approach to things. And that is where I believe it may not be able to surprise, kind of throw a very big surprise in a positive sense.
The big question, Vikash, good morning, is when FPIs will return, right? I think that's the number one question people are asking. And what will it take for them to return? Do you think easing, leveling off equity taxation, especially from an FPI point of view, will do it? Do you think we will see it? Your thoughts?
Let's take a step back on what are the things that we look for in a budget. There will be three, four broad ways in which we look into what the budget. First is, what is the longer term statement that the government is trying to make? Where, where would it lead India into in terms of capex, areas where that it wants to focus on? I think the budget needs to be more clear on that, on those answers, thinking about it more on a structural basis, because globally we are in the midst of this argument or this debate whether AI could be the most important technology we've ever seen, and how is India kind of dealing with that? I think that's one answer that we need to seek. Plus, also, where are we heading into in terms of, you asked about, taxation. I think it's not just taxation. It's basically how do we get sustainable higher levels of growth. Most countries in the world in their history have only got sustainable high level of growth by getting better access to foreign markets. When I say access to foreign markets, it's not just by being able to export, but also the fact that getting foreign capital to fund that growth and to generate that employment, to give that opportunity, to allow that profitability to kind of flow into our country is also something which is relevant. That is through the route of FDI as well as FPI. So can the government really further make a statement to make our ability to attract foreign markets and foreign inflows to fund our growth is something which will be watched out for. Specific questions on taxation, yes, I think this keeps coming up every time, and India has a different taxation than many other countries in terms of foreign investors investing into the market. And whether we can see a change, honestly, it's very tough to predict that, but that's been a demand for a while. And there are several complicated problems which foreign investors face in terms of NAV adjustments, in terms of when it is short term, when it becomes long term, because they have to report pre-tax, post-tax NAVs, have several other complications which are there, which makes it even more difficult. So it doesn't really help attracting long-term capital from outside, definitely. So it's still to be watched. I'm not great at guessing on this one, but this has been a demand for a while now.
Okay, well, there are more shots coming in of the finance minister entering Kartavya Bhavan with her entire team, finance secretary as well as revenue secretary, expenditure secretary. The CEA is just behind there. And of course, the new DEA secretary, there's a lady there. So, the entire team is here. And this is that Bahi Khata in which she carries the budget, the laptop. So all those in place. Sometime back we used to have a briefcase. Yeah. Now we have the Bahi Katha and a lovely sari. Oh, what a pretty sari that is. Actually, red and black, something like mine, isn't it?
Yeah, hopefully there's a bit of a surprise in there as well.
Positive, yes.
Yeah, positive surprise. Okay, we'll keep getting you visuals and, we'll get you the latest from there. For the time being, let's go back to our chat we're having with Vikas. Vikas, given the current geopolitical situation that we're seeing, the hope is that defense spend will go up. You think so?
Superb she looks.
See, I prefer to answer a lot of these things by can, whether can or should is actually what is happening. And in fact, if we were to go into specific expectations for this budget from what I've been hearing from clients, defense capex seeing a reasonable growth of mid-teens is clearly something which people are gunning for. Defense stocks have been in action on a positive basis going into the budget. So that's something which will definitely be watched out very closely. The other thing which gets talked about is in terms of funding sources, the government will want to be focused on bringing down fiscal deficit further. They would want to look at more funding sources and maybe raising taxes for petroleum products, for auto fuels is the other expectation which the market is being talking about. So in terms of specific expectations, those are the two most popular ones that we've heard. So defense is pretty much something which kind of is part of it. Given the current geopolitical global setup, yes, I mean it's something which it is rightly to expect something like that that it should happen in terms of a significant growth.
Okay. Vikas, thanks a lot for that. We'll leave it at that. And I take everything on board that you have said. that, they may look for more funding sources. So additional cess on petroleum products, all that could be par for the course. As well, keeping an eye on defense. Vikas just said 15%, mid-teens, but I have heard people 20 to 25 higher on defense. But let's go to the experts. Our NSE team is waiting by Mangalam and Reema, and they have the big man with them, Ashish Kumar Chauhan, Managing Director and CEO of NSE, Nilesh Shah, our own Nilesh Shah of Kotak Mahindra AMC, and Gautam Chowcharia of UBS. They're all with them. Over to you, Mangalam.
Take that point, Lata. It's a special day, a special session, but more importantly, a special place with a special bunch of people as well. We'll ring the opening bell for the budget session from the NSE where it happens. And along with us, Mr. Ashish Kumar Chauhan, obviously Nilesh and Gautam as well. We'll start with you. What an auspicious morning this has been for you. More importantly, by the next budget, the NSE will also be listed. Is that your, promise?
Probably do better than that, but hopefully...
Diwali Muhurat trading, NSE will be listed?
Hopefully, yes.
Hopefully, yes. All right, so that'll be good news, but...
Just one question on that, right? So already NSE's valuation is close to 5 trillion in the unlisted market, which is nearly 5x that of BSE. So what is your thought process on the valuation of NSE as you go to list?
Madam, actually, as frontline regulators, we don't worry too much about our own valuation. And fact is, none of the employees got any stock options, nor we can even buy our shares or other shares. So
but unlisted mein to pop ho gaya after the
generally, we are immune to all this. I mean, of course, the outside people who actually invest money into NSE stocks, they would be having their own valuation. But broadly, our job is not to continue valuing anything.
Your job is to facilitate the business that happens. But Nilesh, what is it that you are looking forward to in this budget? Everything that could have been done from a consumption standpoint has happened, but FI is still not coming, rupees still weakening, the volatility that we saw in gold and silver. What's your wish list?
So one, in this budget, I want Honorable Finance Minister to do trinity of impossible. One, continue to spend money on infrastructure investment as private investment is subdued. Second, please honor your own commitment of reducing debt to GDP ratio to 50% by 2031, which means this year's fiscal deficit has to be lower than last year. And to do that, instead of raising tax, please raise non-tax revenue, asset monetization, divestment, or some out-of-box idea. And finally, Mangalam, I'll borrow from what you say. In this budget, let's create a DG Yatra for entrepreneurs, both local as well as global. DG Yatra allows us to enter airports very seamlessly, very fast. Can we create DG Yatra for investment, both foreign as well as local?
DG Yatra for foreign as well as local investment. That's the headline that you've given us out here.
I have borrowed from what you told me.
We'll give it to you. Gautam, what are the 3 key numbers that you're watching out for?
So one, no negative surprises.
Okay.
That's an opportune time to make sure we don't have some nuances here and there which creates an issue. Second is there's some media reports about the longer term plan. That will be useful to give that stability in the policy making. But longer term, not just in terms of aspiration, but backed by specific policies. Third is always hope for surprises, right? We always
What are you hoping for? What are you hoping for?
Some markets, people are talking about potential cuts in taxes,
for FPI,
FPIs, etc. So let's see. Fingers crossed.
But will there be enough in the budget to revive the animal spirits of the market? Because that growth impetus has been lacking.
So that the fiscal space is limited.
Yes.
So the debt to GDP does create some room for innovation, and specifically with a 3-year view, because debt to GDP gives us flexibility not for this year but for the next 3 years. So if you mix that up with a long-term plan and aspiration, really.
So give us one adventurous reform you think the budget can deliver this time.
I would go back to what Nilesh said, DG Yatra. That will be brilliant. That will be brilliant.
What is the one thing that can bring the FPIs back, according to you?
So one, there are many FPIs who don't pay tax in their own country, endowment funds, pension funds. When they have to pay tax over here, obviously it hurts them. And while our returns could be higher on a post-tax basis, but there is a mindset issue where I don't pay tax in my country, how can I pay tax in other country? So I think we should rationalize that anomaly. Anyway, we give tax exemptions to sovereign funds, to citizens who are coming out of certain countries like Singapore and Middle East on capital gains.
extend it to the foreign portfolio investors who are tax exempt in their own country.
And broadly for me, I have been on a regulatory side, on the administrative side, and for me, the simplistic frameworks are easy to administer. And if a country, the companies are giving profits, and naturally if their prices are going to go up, people come. If the country has no taxes, but also the losses are going to be there, nobody comes, right? So it's always good to sort of say that they don't come this way, that way.
But who runs the business of an exchange, do you think reduction on STT and some people are even talking about abolishment of that because they believe that the role of STT has been done? Do you think that would be a positive?
Yeah, always Tobin tax has been kind of known to create friction and sort of irregularities, but in a way India has proved on many occasions the economic theory is wrong. So I would say government, I mean, it's almost 60,000-70,000 crore a year of STT. Government needs to figure out where the next sort of funds will come in case you give some relaxation here. So it is always about what you want to give vis-a-vis what you want to take, and that's where the balance will come.
Nilesh bhai, the budget priorities of... Sorry. Okay, we have time? All right, quickly. The budget priorities always determine the investment climate, right? So when the government was spending on capex, we saw the industrials, railway, defense, etc. do well. Then the pivot came to consumption. This time, sectorally, what are you watching?
Liberalization.
Liberalization.
Just liberalize entrepreneur, they'll figure out where to go.
We have 30 seconds left.
All right.
We have 25 seconds to go.
At 1 second, we have to...
We will ring the bell in about 30 seconds. This is a magical bell for today because you have to make a wish and then ring it. Yes. That's when all wishes will come.
I'm like a priest.
He will ring the temple bells before the IPO.
10,
No.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yes.
There goes the opening bell.
George,
Keep going for it. The harder you ring, the more reforms will come by. There goes the opening bell. Guys.
Look lovely, and I think we need some more ringing. We'll come back to you guys. But just looks fantabulous from there. Ashish bhai, Gautam, Nilesh bhai, Nimesh, Reema, Mangalam. Thanks very much, guys, for that. We'll come back to you. I'll just quickly run through where the opening is at, right? Nifty is down, 65 points, 25,260 is where we're at. And right off the bat, look at what's happening with Hindustan Copper. Look at this, 13% down, 14% down on Hindustan Copper. We can just go straight down to stocks on your screen. Look at MCX, limit down 10%. Let's just show that, all right? Hindustan Zinc, the other one, 10% lower. Vedanta, 8% lower. Nalco, 10% lower. And this is all commodity. That is what I was talking about in the morning. By the way, gold and silver are I mean, the underlying commodities trading on MCX are themselves locked down on lower circuit. I mean, the circuits are 3%, 6%, and that's how they move. And we'll kind of sort of, because of course stocks are taking a cue from what's happening there. Equities like MCX were basically a proxy for what was happening in commodities, underlying commodities, and underlying commodities took a really large, downdrift on Friday, and I think we're seeing that here as well. So 50 points lower, but all attention, of course, on what's happening here. I'm just looking at maybe the huge volumes as well, right? The ETFs, by the way, are the other way to look at this. So look at gold Bs down 10%. I think silver ETF is also down about 10% or so. So here, unlike the actual commodity on MCX, and we'll have all these up as we always do at the bottom, the ETFs, the financial instruments, they're all down very, very sharply. What else? I mean, I think Hindalco is the other one I did not mention right in the top. It's down about 6% as well. So that's the start. We're down about 50 odd points at this stage. And it's 25,274 in a holding pattern, at least at the index level, and things will pick up as they always do. They kind of go quiet as we go closer to the 11 o'clock budget speech point, and then action starts to pick up as announcements start to come through. But there is a lot more happening as far as markets are concerned. And Nigel, you're going to walk across to the wall with to tell us what's happening.
Well, that's right, Prashant. You know, historic day, right? I don't think we've ever had a day when the markets have been open on a Sunday. Yeah. So in that case, in fact, it's rather historic. Just take a look at some of these rates that are flashing for you on the screen. You have the Nifty Bank, both of them have opened up on the back foot. But you pull up a few more indices as well. The mid-cap space, there was some pressure out there. However, the outperformer is continuing its winning ways. That's the Nifty Bank. That's holding more or less flattish. And that's giving some kind of hope out there. Metal index, that's getting absolutely slammed. So the sensitives to the metal index would obviously be the frontline names, stocks that have seen a big run. Hindustan Zinc and Vedanta, top of mind. Remember, those stocks have rallied big time in the last month itself. Now with metals coming under pressure, both these two stocks, in fact, are seeing selling. Hindustan Zinc gap down 10%. This is following a 10% cut that we saw in Friday's trading session. Vedanta, that's the parent, so that as well is under some pressure. But it's not just the metals names. Some of these ancillaries, MCX went up one way, you know, in when this metal rally was taking place. So MCX is another stock. Let's get that one up for you. That's Vedanta. MCX as well should come up for you. That's under pressure. And pull up some of these gold financiers as well. Muthoot, Manappuram, as well as IIFL. All three of them actually have opened up well in the red. That's Muthoot down close to around 6%. These are stocks that have already seen a big run, so they are coming for some profit taking. A couple of notable names from the broader markets that are moving on very high volumes. IFCI, I'm not too sure whether or not they have a direct stake in NSE, but that's normally the stock that moves when you hear news about NSE listing. So IFCI is up close to around 10%. Cupid is another one that is moving on very high volumes in the initial part of trade. That as well is zooming away. So IFCI is running away. Cupid is up close to around 6%. Volumes are high on both those names. And in terms of losers, I was looking at a few stocks from the broader markets. You have Intellect Design. That's down close to around 6%. Big downtick is what you're seeing on that particular counter. Stovecraft is another stock that was reacting to its numbers. So that as well should come up for you on the screen. These are some of the big losers actually from the broader markets. The defense stocks will be in focus all through the trading sessions. And there was some mild green on stocks like BEL, HAL, as well as BDL. All of them should come up for you on the screen. Some green out there. And from the frontline names, you have Sun Pharma and Bajaj Auto, both of them holding well in the green. So it's an interesting start to trade, Prashant as well as Lata. As I said, historic Sunday where you're tracking the markets and you have live rates on your screen.
Absolutely. I think we must give some credit to the greens as well today. And as you said, reacting to very good numbers, Bajaj Auto and Sun Pharma. And to your defense list, I will also add Paras Defense. That one also is doing reasonably well. The two big banks, HDFC Bank and Axis Bank, doing well. Expecting, I don't know whether the expectation that tax on deposits, fixed income, will be given a slightly kinder hand. Or generally, if economic growth is good, you know, banks tend to benefit. But private banks are doing very well at this point in time. Not the public sector banks, because their OFSs and divestment will be a kind of an overhang.
One quick word on Hindustan Zinc. Mr. Agarwal timing it perfectly.
Brilliantly.
You know, raising close to around 3,500 crores at around 685 rupees. Hindustan Zinc currently down big time. And in a matter of few trading sessions, Hormuz tells me it's lost close to around 60,000 crores of market capitalization. Not a stock for the faint-hearted.
Brilliant timing.
Thinking, right? We often talk about buying gold. And many people have said, and rightly so, there's no intrinsic value, although there is a lot of value in other ways. But it doesn't throw any cash flow out. But if you look at a stock, it does throw cash flow out. Names like Vedanta. So I think, I mean, it's not now maybe because right now in the fear and the frenzy, if everything is getting thrown out, but that differentiation will emerge as we go forward. Let's actually go back to our team at the NSE. They've got some super people with them to talk about what to expect from the budget and how markets will trade from here. Guys, over to you.
Well, you know, you did speak about gold, so let's pose that question as well to Nilesh. Nilesh, you know, you were saying that there is a fair amount of volatility, froth in the bullion market. And with the kind of decline that we've seen over the last 2 days, do you think you feel good that now people will come back to the equities saying that, okay, this is not as risky as the others?
So I'll request everyone to follow asset allocation. But then we all know human minds do get driven by greed as well as fear. I will still say, please follow your asset allocation. But chances are that over next 2 to 3 years, if you take a call, Indian equity looks better poised vis-a-vis, let's say, precious metal. Both are different asset classes.
Is that part B of the budget is going to be more significant or is going to be equally significant? So one, I imagine or I assume that we're probably going to see a long budget. Is it going to be longer than usual? I'm not sure. But part B is going to be important. It's going to lay out not just short-term objectives of the government, but a long-term vision. So perhaps
Mid caps and large caps should outperform small cap. Large caps are at all-time high near, but their valuation are still around historical average. Small caps are down, but they are still at a premium to historical average.
Gautam, never before has this budget-making exercise been at a time when there's so much uncertainty on the geopolitical front. Fragmented trade, volatile commodities, the INR continues to hit record lows against the dollar. To your mind, what can we expect in the budget this time which can bring back the growth impetus, apart from, of course, ease of doing business for all entrepreneurs? That's one big ask. But outside of that?
So I think going back to the 2 points, in the context of the global uncertainty, having no mistakes or no negatives, it's a big, big win to begin with. And in that context, to give a longer-term growth projection of plan, in the context of global uncertainty, like the finance minister saying that irrespective of the US trade deal, this is our policy-making path for the next 3 to 5 years. That does help a long way. Now, growth is an outcome ultimately. You can't, beyond a point, can't do much. The elements are already in place, the banking system, the macro stability. Animal spirits is spirit, right? It's not a mechanical thing. And it will happen. It will happen.
Do you think, given the economic survey's view that despite our macros being extremely strong, the rupee is weak, because now the reasons for that are not fundamental, it's more narrative based. So this budget will perhaps not look at fundamentals with such a tight grip, maybe slip a little on fiscal discipline for a bit, for bringing the narrative back to India. Do you think that's a possibility?
It's a possibility, but again, there should not be any panic around that. Look, even with the rupee move which we have seen, in the context of historical, like go back to 2013, we have far, far stronger macro environment stability right now. Okay? Rupee in this environment actually is helping to some extent. So we should not over panic around that. Some part of depreciation is fine. The context should be in the current context. We're seeing global uncertainty around all of us. So I won't panic too much about
CapEx
that.
growth, fiscal discipline and net borrowing would be the 3 numbers that you would be comfortable with.
And again, that should be broadly in line, not too much of a negative surprise. That's the critical part.
10 to 11% CapEx growth will be good with you?
Second?
10 to
11%?
Yes. Yeah, in line with nominal GDP, maybe slightly uptick. That's what market is also hoping for.
And if we do get a thrust on defense spending, say the defense budget goes up by 15 to 20%, does that build an investment case to invest in defense stocks? How are the valuations right now?
So look, defense is a broad-based basket. There are pockets which are more richly valued than the rest. But as a fact, the market is expecting and pricing in that there will be increased spending. So spending going up by 15% will not be a positive surprise for the markets.
Ashish Bhai, your last word on what is the biggest challenge that's facing Finance Minister as she presents her 9th budget right now, and what can she do? Your one, big wish list.
No, broadly, broad framework is when the world around you is so tumultuous. Everything is kind of going from their convention places everywhere else. You need to focus. And the BJP governments over the last 25 years have been very fiscally conservative governments. Broadly speaking, they have brought down the fiscal deficit, the revenue deficits. And for me, if you continue on what you can do, vis-a-vis what the rest of the world will do. So that's where I think they have focused over even during COVID, but even post-COVID, they have been focusing on few things like infrastructure, where the government is sort of pushing the infrastructure, and that's helping the rest of the economy to move on, ensuring that the tax structures are now rationalized, automated, with very little hands-on sort of personalized activities. And so for me, you have to create rails, and then many trains can run. And that's what they have been trying to do for last 11 years. And I would say if you continue on that, we have a good growth engine that has come up.
All right, continue on that path. Last ball of the innings. Nilesh Bhai, you're on strike. Take it away.
So last time when I came on CNBC TV 18, it was about precious metal, and I won an orange shirt. That was the closest color available. I just hope and pray Rina's dress is not indicating anything for today's market.
All right, with that, it's back to you guys in the studio. Nilesh bhai hopes that Rima's dress is not the indicator of
And the
market today.
contra-indicator.
I'd look at my tie as a hot pink tie because it's in the pink of the health, the economy.
Yeah. Okay, all right, guys, thank you very much. It's a fun chat, it's a useful chat, and I think, we'll keep going back to the NSC, which is, of course, one of the headquarters where we are sort of, beaming out of to cover this particular union budget. So once again, thank you very much, all of you there. Well, we have the other Nilesh here in the studio as founder of Envision Capital. Nilesh, good morning. It's always good to see you on a budget morning, and this is a Sunday morning, so thank you for that as well. What's your sense, Nilesh? And I think let's just start with the one big elephant in the room, which is equity taxation. क्या हो सकता है आपके हिसाब से और realistically? I mean, do you have any belief that something will happen?
क्या हो सकता है वो पता नहीं, but क्या होना चाहिए is more the thing that I think over the years we've introduced taxes on long-term capital gains, on dividends, on buybacks. There's also the STT which exists. I think something has to be done about this. We ought to either rationalize this or we need to basically remove it or eliminate it. Because we need capital, undoubtedly. And if we need capital, we need to attract capital. And I think for that, we have to make it more efficient for investors to participate in India's long-term growth story.
This is a really top-down macro view, but specifically, what is something?
So, for example, I'm just saying is if you want to encourage long-term, let's assume you don't want speculators, traders, all of that. People have gone on to saying buying and selling shares doesn't create economies, rightly so. But investment does create an economy. So probably introduce a category saying is that up to 1 year is 20%, 1 to 3 years make it 12.5, above 3 years make it 0. So introduce that category, redefine what long-term is. Instead of 1 year, take it to 3 years and make that investments 3 years plus, eliminate
So under 1, over 1 remains, which is the intermediate.
Which is 12.5, so there's no going back. Just that 12.5 is basically you do it up to 3 years, above 3 years, remove it.
And if that were to happen, since you mentioned that specifically, what is the impact?
No, so I think there are two areas. One is I think domestic investors, for them who have found it difficult to kind of really have appreciation over the last year and a half, will be encouraged to basically stay on and maybe at some point of time increase allocations. That's one. Two is foreign investors who have been on a selling spree almost now for 5 years. It's not just a 1 year phenomena, but the sum total of 5 years is not encouraging. That's for a variety of reasons. We are not part of the AI trade, our valuations are relatively expensive. But the third area is that we are probably one of those few markets around the world which has a tax on foreigners. So maybe that's one. So if you basically introduce this category, I think it will at least induce them to kind of reduce their selling or at some point of time come in a big way. I think if you look at foreign investors, their positioning on India is a massive underweight, okay? And there is huge room for them to allocate. I think it's just that you need to kind of give some carrot, some benefit, some inducement, which basically removes them from that inertia and starts allocating to India. So it's a combination, multifold impact which it can have.
No, that's a very big ask from the foreigners, especially sovereign wealth funds who say we don't even have a tax set off because we don't pay any tax at all. And sometimes you're making gain on rupee terms because of the depreciation, but a loss in dollar terms, and still we have to pay a withholding capital gains tax.
And that tax is on the rupee gains.
Yes.
So and not the dollar.
So there is, there are a lot of complaints that have gone, but we have to see whether the finance minister is convinced. By the way, I just wanted to tell you that we saw the pictures of Nirmala Sitharaman, all of them trooping in to meet the president. The Indian constitution says the president causes the budget to be laid on parliament. So you would have the meeting with the president first because she lays the budget on the table and then it is read by the finance minister. We also saw Minister of State for Finance, Pankaj Chaudhary. We saw Anuradha Thakur some time back, the DEA secretary, and then of course the others, the revenue secretary and the expenditure secretary. Okay, Nilesh, coming down to brass tacks. Which sectors you think, she would encourage? I don't know how much you read of the survey. Any hints, any clues?
So clearly, what the survey clearly points to is basically manufacturing. Manufacturing is the need of the hour. That's our biggest hedge against maybe potential job losses in an AI-driven, AI-oriented world. There's lots which has already been done for services. it has to be manufacturing and trade, which basically is the need of the hour, and whatever needs to be done for manufacturing and trade. I think the whole cut in GST rates, the free trade agreements, the positioning on customs duties, all of that essentially has been a great start. But probably you need to think beyond PLIs. We've got the production-linked incentives. Last year's budget had incentives for apprentice kind of a program, but maybe now you need to kind of have it more in terms of formal employment. So maybe convert the PLI to an ELI, which is an employment-linked incentive. Okay. And I think position yourself for the world market. I mean, like I think the survey talks about entrepreneurial state.
Yes.
And entrepreneurs think in terms of TAM.
Yeah.
And when you're basically manufacturing for India, your TAM is relevant for 1 billion people. When you're looking essentially as manufacturing for the world, your TAM goes up 4x, 5x, 6x, because you're catering to a market which potentially is of 5 to 6 billion people.
If I may persist, name some sectors.
No, I still believe it's going to be areas around defense, around electronics, around semiconductors. These are essentially, obviously, the relatively, if I may use the word, new age kind of manufacturing opportunities. And then there is the whole conventional pack like textiles, jewelry, etc., which will benefit through the free trade agreements. And then, of course, a lot to do. We talk about ease of doing business. I think we should change that to ease of doing manufacturing. Yeah. I think once we start to do that, I think it'll be a paradigm shift.
All right. And as we heard our Prime Minister say, reform, perform and transform. Hopefully we'll see some measures in that direction. But let's welcome our other guest as well on the show. We have Mr. N. Venu, the MD and CEO at Hitachi Energy India, who joins us on the show. Good morning, Mr. Venu. Thanks a lot for speaking to us here on CNBC TV 18. It's a big day, and you definitely have a wish list, because the last few days, there has been some kind of nervousness about imports coming in, about, loosening the leash a little bit, which could create for a business like yours. So tell us, what is on your wish list, sir?
Good morning, Nigel. First of all, thank you for having me in your show, and really looking forward for the big day, not only for the 1 year, but we are really looking forward some kind of direction for a multi-year, a little bit of long-term views on the growth momentum, etc. in that. From our standpoint, is a very clean and clear expectations that, continuity on the CapEx spending. I expect, at least personally, I expect at least high double-digit growth in the CapEx spending. That will create a huge amount of, opportunities and demand for various industries, including ours. And coming back to the sectoral side, I know that there will be a lot of focus on the AI, deep tech related things. That's absolutely important. But at the same time, to have a focus on the AI, you also need to have a lot of strategy and focus on the energy systems. And especially AI data centers, you need a robust, flexible power systems, and really looking forward kind of whether it is a local manufacturing things, and those are the things we are looking forward into the budget.
Okay, that's well said, Mr. Venu. But we just had the India Energy Week. Mr. Hardeep Puri was available, for consultation. I'm sure all of you all have already sent your consultations in the entire power ecosystem, which, as you say, is needed for data centers. Which part do you think will or should or could get some benefit? Will it be the distribution piece? Will it be the transformers? Grids? Because there is a lot of kind of dysfunction when the grid has to adjust for solar and adjust for between thermal. What are you expecting at all?
No, I'm expecting 2-3 things. One thing, absolutely, we need a more manufacturing, local manufacturing, end-to-end manufacturing need to be there. At least 2 to 3 times more than what capacities we have, and that is what is required. And then we need a lot of, not only the PLI, but in a PLI 2.0 kind of things, where we really need to rapid productions, rapid manufacturing, rapid, skill sets. It's not only just, bring the technology and manufacturing it, but we need an end-to-end manufacturing focus is required. And that's number one I'm looking forward. Number two, on the discom side, because most of the data centers will be located in the states, and you need to have a very robust power, sanctions, power flexibility, and that needs to be done in that. So discoms has to be empowered. Discom need to be, create separate cells for the data centers, because the data center growth is going to be huge, and it's not like, normal industry will take 3 to 4 years. Some of the data centers are, we see in other parts of the world, they are building in less than 12 to 18 months time frame in that. So whole ecosystem has to adjust to this kind of time frames, including supply of transformer, for example.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think 2 years back, they allowed sovereign wealth funds and that category
to invest,
to invest in infrastructure, FDI infrastructure,
without
that was tax-free. But the point is, Lata, that FDI, all these guys come in as FPIs. They're registered as FPIs. So if you want to do something for them, I mean, you'll have to just do something for the category as a whole.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, AI is not just AI, it's not just roads and bridges, it's all kinds of infra. Now, AI is, of course, something which Mr. Venu said. Mr. Venu, we have more questions, but as always, on a day of the budget, we have limited time. And I request you come back once the budget speech is over to discuss this more. Thank you very much for joining us here on the program. Let's cut across to Shireen now. And she has the star-studded panel, former Revenue Secretary Tarun Bajaj, former Defence Secretary Mr. Aramne, and the former CBIC Chief and Senior Advisor at KPMG, Vivek Johri. Shireen, over to you.
Thanks very much, guys. The budget editors are here to decode what Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is likely to deliver. And without further ado, let me get straight into the big issue that the market is hoping for and certainly waiting to hear the FM speak about. The former Revenue Secretary here with us, Mr. Bajaj, let me start by asking you, the big chatter that Digi Yatra for foreign investors and domestic investors, frictionless entry, that is what Nilesh Shah just told us on the channel. Do you expect any change at all on LTCG, any change at all from a FPI perspective? Are you working with that assumption expectation at all?
I would say the way the numbers are coming for the current year, I would have my doubts if there's going to be any changes in LTCG and STCG. But you never know. The budget always gives surprises to the market. But my own view is that it is very unlikely that there would be any changes. And I think the changes having been made last year or last to last year. So I think stability is the theme of this government. So they would like it to continue for a few years. So I'll be very doubtful if they do.
You'll be surprised if at all it happens. So what do you believe the government could do by way of sending out a message to both FDI as well as FPI?
So I would say the first thing is we really need to analyze why the FDI and FPI thing is happening. The FPIs are taking money out. Though there is a good gross FDI, I think it is about $60 billion, but the net FDI is much lower. It has to happen that after a long period of time when the FDI was coming, some money would start going out. The Indian industrialists will also start investing outside. So I would say even if these little changes are made, which the market is anticipating or the Bombay is expecting that to happen, it may not change the way FDI and FPI will behave in the times to come. So the dollar is actually becoming stronger as compared to the Indian rupee. So it doesn't make sense for the FPIs to make investments. As soon as they make their investment, the very next day their investment goes down. So I would say it would need a different kind of a mindset rather than
any short-term fix, short-term fix at this point in time. Mr. Johri, the big story that's playing out on our screens right now is the crash in commodities that we've seen overnight. Silver, gold, all of the stocks reacting here in India as well. Do you believe that there could be the possibility of a higher duty, import duty imposition on gold and silver? Would it make sense at this point in time?
It's quite tempting to do that. But there's a downside to increasing duties on gold and silver. And in the past, our experience has been that if you increase duties beyond a certain threshold, they always lead to more smuggling and more, illegal, sort of illicit imports. So if at all there is an increase, I'm not putting any bets on it, but if at all there's an increase, it will be moderate.
Moderate?
Only from the point of view of raising revenue.
Will disinvestment be revived? That's my hunch. And as I said, the evidence shows that it's unlikely to, given that we've seen that it's been virtually dead over the last few years. Do you expect a revival on disinvestment, Mr. Bajaj?
So I'll answer that question by saying that I hope you're right. But the way things have happened in the past, I don't think it'll be a big bang. We are expecting IDBI to happen. I think I read it in the papers yesterday that that would happen. And some small bits might happen here and there. But I don't expect that what was announced earlier, that one bank or two banks will go. I think it'll be slow and steady.
There is consensus, though, on just one item, that this is going to be a year for defense allocation, Mr. Ramne, to go up, if not by 15%, perhaps even higher, 20 to 25%. And that's the number that you're working with as well, correct?
Yes. In fact, defense capability improvement is most important at this juncture because of the regional conflicts and also global situation. So capex in defense is likely to go up. Whether it's 15% or 20% will solely depend on the readiness of the department and ministry to place the orders and also to take the delivery. The increases will be contingent upon the previous orders which were placed and which are ready to be delivered. So all in all, there is a scope for at least 15 to 20% increase because of huge orders placed over last 3 years, and they coming to maturity and fruition in the current year is likely to increase the budget by at least.
As well as the emergency procurement.
Yeah, the second important aspect is the emergency procurement. 2 tranches of emergency procurement are right now going on. If both of them mature into delivery or at least to come to certain stage, I am hopeful that capex will increase. Apart from capex, there will be huge increase in the non-salary revenue expenditure, which will basically help the services to shore up their inventories and other equipment.
Okay, so 15 to 20% higher allocation for defense. But, you know, gentlemen, I want to understand from you, because both these individuals here have been part of the budget-making process till very recently. Part B is likely to get more focus and attention is what we're given to understand. What would you read into that, Mr. Bajaj?
So, to answer your question very curtly, I would say I'd wait for another hour to see what it contains, rather than speculating on national media as to what it would contain.
But I'm not asking what it would contain. I'm saying, what do you believe it signals the decision to focus more on Part B or give Part B as much focus as Part A?
The Part B always had more focus than Part A. I've done Part B and Part A separately, and I would say that most of the people, and especially your audience, would be more interested in Part B than Part A. But here I would say maybe the government wants to give a longer vision or medium-term vision, because there's always been this speculation by the foreign investors that there is no stability in tax systems in the country, and every now and then we get a surprise. So maybe something to that extent would happen, because I also see that the government has done enough on taxes. The GST thing has happened. On the personal income tax, it has happened. On corporate tax, it's already happened. And customs, Mr. Johri is here, and he will bear me out that this time we are expecting a lot to happen on the customs side.
Correct.
So I would say that is it.
Mr. Johri, what would you read into that? And customs, I think, again, there's consensus that import duty rationalization is going to be the big one. And you've told me as well, you expect, we've gone from what, 23 to 8, and now you expect 8 to 4 in terms of tariff lines.
So, so yes, it's quite fair to assume that there would be a big push on customs rate rationalization, like we did for GST. And I expect the number of rates to come down at least to 4. But more, other than that, I also expect Part B to delve deeper into ease of doing business. Because there's a lot of concern. You talked about FDI and all that. There's a lot of concern about uncertainty in the current tax regime, and how investigations get taken up, interpretative issues get converted into disputes. So I think there will be some vision that will be laid out on how to deal with that. Maybe some immediate measures, and maybe some medium-term measures, administrative and legal, on how we can deal better with disputes and closing disputes and so on.
Mr. Bajaj, before I hand it back to the markets, because the markets are also fairly volatile, the Nifty now moving into the green, as has the Sensex. But how much fiscal space, how much fiscal room does the finance minister have to maneuver? I mean, everybody has put out a wish list on what they want, but at the end of the day, you've got to balance all of those out. How much fiscal space does she have, you see?
So what I would say is that over the past few years, the revenues showed a very good buoyancy, which has not been the case this year, especially after the relief given both on personal income tax and GST. So in that sense, the fiscal space would not be as much as it has been in the past. So I would say that the budget has been going up by almost 7, 8, 9% in terms of the total budget size. At the most, we can expect a similar increase in the current year because there would also be a base effect because the GST changes came up in September, October. Till September, we may not have that much of a rise in GST. So I would say that the space would definitely be lesser than what it has been in the past, looking at the trends that we have seen in the current year.
So that is the budget setup as we count down to Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's ninth budget. Limited space, but do expect a lot as far as import rate rationalization is concerned, and perhaps even a longer term roadmap that the government may hold out as far as taxes are concerned. And defense, that's the big story there, that the defense sector allocation is going to be significantly higher. GST collections in 1.93 lakh crore rupees for January 2026. I remember every month we would chat about GST collections. Are you missing doing that?
No, I'm missing teasing you because you would every time ask me, when will you cross 1 lakh? And I said, I'll stop that question.
We're almost at 2 lakh crore rupees now as far as GST collections are concerned. But Prashant, back to you guys. We'll have, of course, our budget editors with us through the course of the day. Back to you for the market.
Absolutely, Shireen. And there is a lot happening, right? And look at the Nifty, 15 points higher, which means it's come back into the green. And while underlying commodity prices on MCX have not recovered, and this is the point I was making earlier, stocks are a different matter. Stocks have recovered. Look at something like a Vedanta. Just look at the intraday of Vedanta. It's recovered 6% from the day's lowest point. And then maybe just look at Hindustan, steel stocks actually. Steel. Names like JSW, Tata Steel, I think those have also recovered. The pure play, Hindustan Copper, Silver, which is Hindustan Zinc, those have not recovered. MCX has come off about 4% off the lows. It was down 15%, MCX. A lot of brokers trading gold and silver for their clients would be out of margin. And I guess that is the reason why there's I think, no doubt, forced liquidation this morning, which is underway. There is, remember, expectation that perhaps import duty, and that is the reason why futures on MCX for both gold and silver were trading at an 8-9% premium. That may still happen, but that is only when the speech comes. So, but you got to live till then, and they will be, because of lack of margins, etc. And margins have gone up substantially from under 30% to 63% on Friday evening. All that is kind of playing out this morning as we have been highlighting from the word go. We'll take a quick commercial break here. Markets, of course, because of this commodity thing which is going on. Otherwise, I mean, going into the budget, especially till 11, it kind of goes flat, very, very quiet. And then things pick up. But because of all of what we've seen in commodities in international markets and consequently here, there is all that activity. We'll be joined on the other side by Dinesh Kanabar of Dhruva Advisors, Sunil Badala of KPMG India. We'll start talking about, of course, the elephant in the room, if I can call it that, taxation. Stay with us.
What does it take to build India's largest startup platform? It takes a journey of starting out as an unknown and ending up as unforgettable. It takes more than 2 decades of celebrating the most influential and influencing the most celebrated entrepreneurs. From chronicling the stories of India's startup universe to becoming a success story in itself, as India's longest-running show on startups and entrepreneurship.
Young Turks at 22. Only on CNBC TV 18 and CNBCTV18.com.
CNBC TV 18's most comprehensive and award-winning news show, India Business Hour, drops first on YouTube. So get the first access to the most influential architects of policies and politics, the key newsmakers of the day. Discover the big themes as we decode the business of markets, macros and more. Be the first to go to the heart of all the top stories that drive the day's agenda. Catch the award-winning India Business Hour live every night on YouTube with me, Shireen Bhat.
India Business Hour live on YouTube at CNBC TV 18 weeknights at 7 p.m. How about listening to global market maestros before crafting your investment strategy? How about getting deep insights into their businesses from top Indian honchos before putting your money on the line? How about making every trading day profitable with strategies from the market masters, macro pundits and chart wizards? Only one show gives you a head start to your trading day. Get ready to profit. Get ready for business with Bajar at these times on CNBC TV 18 and CNBCTV18.com.
If you're watching the budget for the markets, start here.
You'll get the announcement everywhere. You'll get the meaning here.
We don't just give out numbers, we track what they change.
We don't cover just the budget, we cover the aftershocks as well.
From policy to portfolio, we connect the dots.
We turn budget noise into tradable clarity.
No heavy jargon, just what it means for you and your money. Taxes, jobs, prices, decoded.
Your salary, your savings, your spends, all covered.
Reactions in real time, street, screens and sentiment.
Announcements are easy. Impact is the story.
One line in the budget can move a sector. We spot it fast.
Welcome back. The Nifty and the Sensex have just about moved up into the green. So clearly a lot of losses washed off. I guess early morning positions, especially on metal stocks, had to be corrected. Thereafter, there is a lot of optimism on defense stocks. Drone Chari is the one that's doing extremely well. BEL, of course, Paris Defense among the mid-caps, that is. Mid-caps were at one point minus 0.7% and now it's about 0.48%. Gokula's exports is up. That's indicating some hope.
Look at the Nifty, Lada, right?
I know.
This is the right state of the Nifty. 1 point change.
That's how it is.
It is usually very, very flat because, it's tentative, it's kind of,
And
waiting
today being a
watching.
Sunday, it ought to be, but we had a terrible Friday of metal
No, the
stocks.
only thing which is throwing everything off, as I said, is commodities and metals, right? What happened. And, it's a historic one for Friday. So obviously, without international prices and feedback loop functioning, I mean, what's happening is happening.
Absolutely. I mean, when would you have a backdrop where there is a 27% drop in silver?
Yeah.
So, there, and of course, other things, copper and gold have also had.
Just one more word from the broader markets, while we're talking about the frontline names, there are stocks that are moving high on very good volumes. IKEA Lightings, that's up 13%. Volumes very, very high out there. You have Euro Pratik as well, that's higher. Shilpa Medicare, that one as well. Volumes very, very high, for a few minutes into the trading session. All these stocks, I'm highlighting them because they're up more than 10%. So market is taking note of some of the earnings reaction and bidding up the stock. Aztec Life Sciences, that's another stock as well that's up and about. So select stocks, they continue to do a thing of their own. And it's good to see at least market is taking note of some of that good news.
Yeah, and TPC Green, Nigel, right? And TPC Green is up 4%. I'm not sure.
They're expecting something on nuclear.
Exactly. So it's all, a little bit of, there is that budget element of, people can say that budget doesn't matter, importance is faded, but everybody before the budget or on the day of the budget.
For a trader,
it's
very
much
important.
Absolutely. Walchand Nagar Industries, right? I mean, it's a defense company out of Pune. It's up 4%. It's got volumes as well. There is IdeaForge drones, perhaps, right? Defense and drones. So 5% on IdeaForge at this point. Avanti Feed, there is always the seafood sector, shrimps, etc., which finds a mention in this speech. I remember going back many budgets. So Avanti is up 5%. Dredging Corp, shipping, commercial shipping, we were talking about, is done very well, by the way. I mean, it's actually had a one-way rocket-like move, but 5.5% higher there. So you can kind of, look at this stuff. There is MTAR Tech, again, defense company, 5%. So a lot of stuff which is coming through is perhaps there is no other reason at this point in time except for expectations.
Just one point, Prashant, with regard to the metal index, which is down as we have been mentioning.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering whether from here on, ferrous names could outperform the non-ferrous names.
Yeah.
The last 2 months, the non-ferrous names have done very, very well. Vedanta, Nalco, Hindalco, all of them because of the global factors. Because now there is a possibility that the dollar strengthens, because we have seen some kind of profit taking. Let's see whether or not the ferrous names, and if you just look at the screen, JSPL, Tata Steel, JSW Steel, all of them have gone bid up, and that they're on the verge of moving into the green. Because Q4 will see good demand. Pricing has improved by 3,500 rupees per ton as well. So let's see whether or not the ferrous names can actually fight back and outperform the non-ferrous names.
Especially if it's going to be a manufacturer in India theme, then these could get a leg up. Though the survey very clearly mentioned, don't give protection to upstream because downstream becomes expensive if the inputs are expensive. But let's see. I mean,
these guys have already got what they want. They shouldn't hope for anything more.
Okay. Well, actually, the elephant in the room, as we have been saying several times, too many elephants in the room. It's always tax. After all, that's what the government can do, isn't it? And therefore, to decode what we can realistically expect, we're joined by two stalwarts, Dinesh Kanabar of Dhruva Advisors and Sunil Badala of KPMG. Gentlemen, good morning and thank you very much for joining us on a Sunday and for your patience. Mr. Kanabar, what's your expectation list?
Couple of things. You know, you rightly mentioned that what is it that the government can do having regard to wherever we are today. So you look at things. We want manufacture in India. I'm seeing the notes about Anand Goenka, for example, talking about how do we have a manufacturing push. Then we have global tailwinds, headwinds, whichever way you look at it, where people who have studied in USA might not be able to get an H-1B visa and might want to come back to the country. And then you are saying that India wants to make its mark, whether it is in the manufacture of semiconductor, whether it is in artificial intelligence. How will we achieve all of this? How do we connect these dots? And two things come in. One is that we need extremely more investment in research and development. That's what's going to keep us ahead. And Lata, whether we agree or not, the Indian corporate spend on R&D is a minuscule of global corporate spend on R&D. And we need to up it. And can the government do something which will allow that investment to happen? Remember that not all R&D is successful. It's a patience game. It's a deep pocket game. And if the government can incentivize this, and you know, Lata, I had an occasion to discuss this with government at great length, and two responses come back. One is, oh, give a proof that if we give this incentive, people will spend more. And second, there are people who abuse it. That cannot be the basis on which you get law. If there are people assuming you need to have guardrails to protect it. But I do hope and wish that the government does give a boost to R&D and thereby give a boost to local manufacture. That's one very important thing. The second important thing, Lata, which I'm looking to and I'm reasonably certain that this will happen, is amendments to customs regulation. This has been one area where digitization seems to have given a go-by. Huge amount of paperwork, backlog, litigation. It's estimated that about 1,52,000 lakh crores are stuck in customs litigation. And there's a huge backlog out. Can we come back? Can we first of all rationalize our rates? We have 8 rates. Can we sort of put it into a better form? Can we just have 4 rates like we did for GST? Can we do a Vivad se Vishwas sort of a thing under customs, get a lot of money released? I think that's very, very important, very critical. And actually, I'm reasonably hopeful and expecting that that's what's going to happen this time.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think very, very important points, Mr. Kanabar, that you made. Sunil, if I can come to you, your sort of, you know, top 2-3 expectations about
in the bond market and in the mutual fund. So let me just quickly touch upon all three. I think there is a concern about STT and the increased long-term and short-term tax rates which were proposed in last year's budget. And there is definitely a rationale to kind of, reduce or eliminate STT or, capital gains tax rate, as the case may be. But having said that, of course, I'm conscious of the fact that the government needs to have the fiscal room to actually do that. And I personally think that if government can find the ways, and I'm sure there are ways in which you can collect more revenue, then I think this is a good thing to do. It will boost the overall sentiments of the market. We have been seeing a lot of stress on the FDI investment. Also, we've seen FPIs pulling out the money consistently for last year or so. I think if you focus on some of these aspects, it will be good. The other thing I think we should look at is the bond market. Yeah.
Right, Sunil. Sorry. Let's just take it, and I'll come to you on the bond market because you have a sort of idea in terms of what should happen there as well. But Mr. Kanabar is with us as well. Mr. Kanabar, you heard Sunil, right? You're smiling, so I think you're. All of us would be happy if these taxes are brought down, but it's about what we want and what perhaps is possible in that sense. So what's your sense on this point, equity taxation?
So I think actually a slightly different point of view, if I could just tell you. There has been this whole going back and forth on tax treaty interpretation. And very recently, we had a Supreme Court judgment in the case of Tiger Global, where the two earlier Supreme Court judgments, which was in the Azadi Bachao and Vodafone, have been, so to say, overturned, where the Supreme Court has come back to say, under what circumstances should tax treaty benefits be given? And speaking to the venture capital, the private equity industry, there's a huge amount of concern that what seemed to be a settled situation has suddenly become unsettled.
Okay.
And I know for a fact that the government is concerned about this development. And I'm hoping to see that what sort of a certainty can the finance minister provide with regard to that. I think to expect a reduction in the rate of tax, of course, it's a utopia. It's something which we all the time always want. We want a reduction of STT, and we want capital gains tax to go away, and we want no taxation on bonds and all of that. But all of that really does not fit within the fiscal framework. There is a merit, of course, to the point which Sunil made about parity in taxation between equity and debt. But leaving that aside, the way I would put it is that government needs to give more certainty rather than look at reduction of rate of tax. That certainty is critical, and believe me, it will give a lot of impetus to the market.
Absolutely. Sunil, that bond market point, quickly, 30 seconds. Just quickly.
So bond market point is very simple. I think on the listed bonds, we obviously know there's a parity between listed bonds and the equity. It's only about unlisted bonds, I think, that we're talking about, that they need to be brought at par with the listed bonds.
Fair enough. Actually, even debt indexation for mutual funds was taken away, and that's been a negative too. I take your point on debt. But gentlemen, do stay on. We have to go across to Shireen, who has a brilliant panel with her. She has Anand Goenka, the president of FICCI and the vice chairman of the RPG group with her. Shireen.
Ellie, thanks. Lata, let's go straight across to Anand Goenka as the markets have moved back into positive territory. Very, very flat at this point in time. Anand, counting down, let me just check the time. We're literally just an hour away from the finance minister presenting her budget. Anand, as a manufacturer now, what is the best case scenario that FICCI's leaders are penciling in? What do you believe the budget is likely to take forward this time around?
But I think it's very important for government to continue to push to make India a manufacturing powerhouse. From FICCI side, there were a couple of ideas, suggestions that we had. One is to look at particularly creating an ecosystem for EMS sector, just as in China. A complete ecosystem approach as in Shenzhen in terms of a mega electronics IT park. That will get a lot more value addition and cost benefits coming in. The second is an increased defense outlay, which will help the defense manufacturing sector, particularly in light of Sindoor and that is happening. Two areas from the manufacturing side. The second big area that comes in place is infrastructure, whether it is data centers, power transmission and distribution. These are two large areas which will need a shift with AI coming in. And the second part of infrastructure is roads and railways to bring the cost of doing business down.
New schemes that you expect? Any new sectors that are likely to fall under a PLI scheme? Anything on that front, Anand, that industry is expecting? Any incentives for R&D? Is that what you're hoping for?
Yes, I think R&D innovation, clearly we have not punched above our weight here. There's a lot more that can be done. Usually what we've noticed in the budget is that the Finance Minister has laid out a long-term plan, whether it is giving insight into the R&D and R&D 1 lakh crore scheme or the National Manufacturing Mission. I think there will be more announcements in that nature or setting more clarity on the previous announcements that have been made. I think providing that long-term vision, continuity, will be very useful on areas such as R&D, job creation, focus on MSMEs, and leveraging the FTAs that have recently been signed.
Anand, before I let you go, I'm doing a pulse check. What is the mood within FICCI at this point in time? How many people, when we last spoke, you said that capacity utilization at 80-85%. How many people are looking at adding capacity? How many people are looking at hiring? How many people are looking at, better than average wage growth, which has been between 7 and 8% over the last few years? What's business confidence like?
Right. So post GST 2.0, we had a pre-budget survey, and we found that overall the mood is fairly optimistic. GDP growth rates are expected to be about 7 to 8%. We do expect an increase in private capex because demand has grown up. We are seeing about nearly 15 to 20% growth in the auto sector, as well as other discretionary and consumer product spends. And so as that utilization goes up, the mood is fairly positive in terms of private capex coming back.
Okay, private capex is the hope that industry is going in with, and that's certainly going to be the big wish of the Finance Minister and the government. Look, they've been saying for the last few years now that we've done our bit. We've given you corporate tax cuts, income tax cuts, GST cuts. What more can we do? Indian industry now needs to start doing the heavy lifting in terms of investment. But Anand, we'll come back with you once the Finance Minister's speech is over to decode the highlights of Budget 2026. Prashant, back to you.
Thanks very much for that, Shireen. Good chat there. And interested to see what corporates really are looking out for here. 8-point change. So markets are in the green. They're off the lows. Nigel has walked across to the big wall to tell us exactly what's happening in terms of single stocks. Nigel, over to you.
Well, for whoever's trading, Prashant, is looking a little bit better than what it was a few minutes ago, because the Nifty, as you said, has seen a bit of recovery. You have stocks like Sun Pharma actually bursting away from the Nifty pack itself. That's up closer around 3.5%, and the markets have moved into the green. Let's focus on a couple of big names then. The metal index, that's the big loser this morning, and that index, in fact, is underperforming by a mile. But there are some of these metal-sensitive stocks that are still under pressure, though they've recovered from the lows. You have MCX that should come up for you. That stock, in fact, is still lower. Let's get that stock up for you. That's lower, but that, in fact, has recovered a little bit. As is the case with Muthoot Finance as well. That stock as well, still trading in the red, but that's recovered considerably from the low. I'll tell you what, from the metals pack, if you look at it, you'll pull up a few ferrous names. JSPL, you should pull up a JSW Steel. Both of them actually are on the verge of moving into the green, or they're almost more or less flattish. While the non-ferrous names, whether you look at Vedanta, Hindustan Zinc as well as Hindalco. And from the non-ferrous names, I think Vedanta is standing out because the contribution of silver to the overall SOTP is rather low. And that's the reason why that stock has recovered close to around 7% from the lows of the day, because the contribution of silver is minimum. It's bigger aluminium play more than anything else. A few more names come up for you from the broader markets. Gala Precision, massive volumes out there, stock up 10%. IQ Lighting, that stock as well should come up for you, up close to around 10% as we speak. Big move is what we're seeing on both those two names. And throw in there, Euro Pratik as well as Shilpa Medichem. All of them are flying away. So fair bit of action from the broader markets. There are a few names as well that are moving up. If you look at a PNC Infra, that stock, I think it's got beaten out of shape, but that's pulled back a little bit. And you have a divestment hope as well. IDBI Bank, That stock, in fact, is up close to around 3.5% with volumes quite high. So plenty of action actually in the broader markets, guys, though the headline index is just moved into the green. Not so bad times.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Nigel, and, very snapshotty view of what's happening right now. Sajid Chinoy is with us at JP Morgan. Samiran Chakrabarti is with us at Citi. Gentlemen, good morning. Great to have both of you here. Thank you very much for joining us. We, the equity folk, get very excited, and we need, economists to bring us and keep us on an even keel, if I can say so. So thank you very much once again. It's a Sunday morning, and it's good to see both of you. Sajid, let me start with you. I read that report, and I think it's a brilliant way you capture the essence of what to expect, right? 5 questions. And there is so much in there. But, one or two things which is really top of mind as you get ready to hear the Finance Minister lay out the budget speech.
So, Prashant, I think first and foremost, I can't think of a time in recent years when there's been such a hostile and uncertain global backdrop. Remember, in the COVID year, the budget happened in February, COVID kicked it in March. The next budget was a year later, by which time, we had some sense of how COVID was playing out. This is truly uncharted territory where, the system that we've known for the last 80 years globally is unraveling. That creates both near-term uncertainty and creates concerns about medium-term growth. So I think the challenge before this budget is twofold. That on the one hand, when you've got all this global uncertainty in financial markets, the typical tendency of emerging markets is hunker down, right? Create buffers, create fiscal buffers, create monetary buffers, create external buffers. But, that sometimes comes at the cost of growth. Whereas the other impulse is going to be in such a, environment where, economic heft determines geopolitical heft. The tendency and the temptation will be to be adventurous and to be expansive. And so that for me is the central challenge between this budget. How do you simultaneously be conservative and be adventurous? My sense is that the way this will happen is the fiscal math will be conservative. I think, as was just said, a lot of the fiscal action happened last year. Direct tax cuts, GST cuts, with nominal GDP growth expected to be in single digits. There isn't much fiscal space, so I'd expect there'll be fiscal conservatism, which has been the hallmark of this government, to under-promise and over-deliver. I think we'll meet this year's target of 4.4, and there'll be more consolidation next year. So the numbers, I think, will be quite conservative. What everyone is hoping for is, outside the fiscal math, can we get announcements that excite not investment and hopefully attract back capital flows? But it's that mix of conservatism and adventurism, I think, that will be key in today's budget.
Okay. Hi, Sajid and Samiran. Thank you very much for sparing time for us. Samiran, you've read the survey with a fine-tooth comb. Can you help us with what sectors or ideas may get prominence?
So thanks, Lata. I guess there are two broad questions in front of the budget today. One is about allocation of capital, both domestic and foreign. At this point of time, we have less of foreign capital into the country and more of domestic savings coming in. But within domestic savings, there is a preponderance towards equity rather than debt. How do we manage this through effective policy instruments in the short run is one of the challenges that I will be looking out for in the budget. And the second one, as Sajid was mentioning, that in an absolutely hostile global environment, we need to rethink about our broader growth strategies. The survey is indicating that we should push towards manufacturing, not only domestic side, but also manufacturing for exports. We have heard this before, but this time around, what kind of newer strategies the budget throws up to achieve that goal? I think that's also will be very important for me. So both the financial side of the economy through better allocation of capital and the real side of the economy by pushing for manufacturing in a bigger way. I think these two would be top of my mind.
Okay, let me persist with that fiscal math, which Sajid took us through, Samiran. We now have the new how the new CPI series might look. And it looks like the CPI is going to be about 20, 30 basis points. Sonal Verma is saying even 50 basis points higher. Plus, the real GDP is forecast by the survey at 6.8 to 7.2. So do you think that the budget would be well within its rights to work with a nominal GDP as high as 400 trillion? would the bond markets be upset that the calculation is too, aggressive if they did that?
I think about a 10% plus nominal GDP growth in the budget, 10 to 10.5, I think will be treated by market as quite reasonable. But on a slightly different note, I think the challenge in this whole new CPI series is that the more the FY26 numbers are higher in the new series, there's a chance that the FY27 numbers will be lower by an equivalent amount because the base effect will work in the reverse direction then. So what we have written is that while we understand that 40 to 50 basis point is FY26 numbers possibly higher, but at the same time, everything else equal, there's a 25 to 30 basis point downside risk to our FY27 CPI just because of this reallocation of weights.
Okay, fair point. Sajid, what's your sense about any sectoral push? Any read-through from the survey?
A couple of things, Lata, just to finish the discussion on the fiscal math. I think it's important to appreciate that we first have to hit this year's deficit. I have no doubt we will. But just to let you know, gross tax growth, even though December was very strong, April to December is running at about 8.5%.
Lower.
And so you get an asking rate of above 20% in Jan, Feb, March to hit your budget target. There's a sense here that gross taxes could be as high as 0.4% of GDP lower than was budgeted. The good news is that there were always buffers built on the expenditure side. And you've got buffers on non-tax revenues because both PSU and RBI dividends have been very high this year. So my sense is you'll get a rebalancing in the RE number in terms of taxes and non-taxes. Lower gross taxes and lower net taxes, higher non-taxes. Similarly, in the expenditure side, don't be surprised if CapEx actually beats last year's target, but revenue expenditure is much lower. So the first point is just to understand how this year's math plans out. No, I think on going forward, the survey makes a very fervent, passionate argument that India has to prepare for a new world. And in a new world, that's what I began. Geopolitical heft comes from economic heft. Somebody once said very famously many years ago, the best foreign policy India can have is to grow at 10% for a decade, right? And so I think the survey lays out some of the guidelines. I agree with Shaumiran that exports have to be the centerpiece of any such strategy in a world of global value chains. And therefore, what I'm looking for is you had a series of reforms the last 6 months. What will be very important to complement it with it is on the import side. The oldest adage in economics is an import tariff is the same as an export tax or as an equivalent import tax. So this will be a wonderful opportunity to clean up the whole customs duty regime, right? Simplify it, clean it up, rationalize the rates, correct duty structures. That seems to be a natural complement to the series of FTAs that we've signed. And I think the survey did talk about how protectionism upstream creates pressures downstream.
Yeah, just one quick point, Sajid. The RBI dividend number, it was 2.7 odd lakh crores last year, right? What could that be meaningfully higher? I mean, at the end of the day, gold, dollar are assets, right? Rupee is a liability. Rupee is depreciated. So could that be, could it be really chunky, bigger?
So I think this year the sense is, the dividend is going to be about 30,000 crores higher, but you're exactly right? The revaluation gains will be higher, next year if the rupee continues to depreciate. So that's one, source that has been reliable over the last few years, and that takes a little bit pressure off tax revenues next year. But again, I want the government to be conservative. I think nominal GDP of 10%, would be par for the course. Anything above could be ambitious. We're in a world with lots of Chinese excess capacity. Yes, you get some technical readjustments from the CPI rebasement, but the fact is goods prices are going to be under pressure for the foreseeable future, given what's happening out of China.
Okay, all right, got that, Sajid. Samiran, let me get you into the discussion then. The rupee weakness is something that has spooked the street, the equity markets as well. Some believe that maybe it's getting stretched on the downside. What do you think?
And what do you expect?
So it's rupees of...
No, what do you expect from the budget? Yeah.
So rupees of function of balance of payment. So what I was mentioning initially was that one of the challenges for us today is that we are not getting as much of capital inflows that we used to get earlier.
Yes.
We are a lot focused on the FPI number, but the big swing factor has been the FDI number. So in a sense, if we can push for manufacturing in a more clearer way through deregulation and all, then there's a chance that the FDI numbers can also increase. If there is more tax certainty, that could be another factor driving that FDI. But somehow to push the FDI thing will, in my view, in the budget, the best support for the rupee currently. The current account is doing just fine. So it's all will boil down to how we manage the capital flow side. I'm not really very keen to look for more sources of FPI increase through different kind of tax concessions, etc. That's a very short-term approach to getting capital flows. The real big one is to get the FDI numbers much higher.
Fair point. Sajid, you have written an excellent edit on how the states also have to contribute if we have to come down in terms of debt to GDP. The centre can move the needle only that much. The states have to move much more. It's possible, therefore, that all programs, like we saw in the MNREGS case, will come with more responsibilities for the state. How does it impact CapEx? Is there anything for the markets or for the economy from that kind of a move, which I very strongly expect, more conditions on the state?
Yes. Yeah, my worry, Lata, is that we've had the surge of cash transfers that's proliferated across states. It's now become very fashionable to do so. And as the economic survey also pointed out, these things come at a cost. And the cost has been twofold. One is you're seeing upward pressure on state deficits. We now have the RBI report on state finances. Last year was 3.3% of the deficit, which is not small. It's been widening in recent years. And there is a risk it's even higher this year. Remember, when there's a shortfall of gross taxes at the center of 0.4% of GDP, a lot of that is then shared by the states. So there'll be a shortfall of taxes for states as well, right? Number one. And number two, the other hit has been that we've just begun to see signs the last 6 months that all the spending on cash transfers.
और इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर गाँव में प्रधानमंत्री सड़क ग्राम सड़क योजना के माध्यम से और ये ग्राम पंचायतों को सशक्त करने के लिए जिस तरह से एक नया
जी हाँ, जैसा कि हम लगातार बता रहे हैं कि घटनाक्रम बदल रहा है। प्रधानमंत्री भी पहुंच चुके हैं संसद भवन, आप देख सकते हैं अपनी टेलीविजन स्क्रीन पर।
कैबिनेट की बैठक शुरू हो गई है और आपको बता दें एक औपचारिकता होती है जब प्रेसिडेंट को ये बजट की कॉपी सौंपी जाती है, उनकी मंजूरी के बाद कैबिनेट की मंजूरी मिलना बजट को जरूरी है। ये तमाम औपचारिकताएं हैं जो निभाई जाती हैं और कैबिनेट की मंजूरी के बाद जब 11 बजे संसद की कार्रवाई शुरू होगी तो वित्त मंत्री निर्मला सीतारमण लोकसभा में बजट पेश करेंगी। और जैसा मैं एक बार फिर से बता रही हूँ, नया इतिहास बनाएंगी वित्त मंत्री निर्मला सीतारमण, देश की पहली ऐसी वित्त मंत्री जो लगातार 9वीं बार आज बजट पेश करेंगी।
जी हाँ, और एक और इतिहास आज बन रहा है। पहली बार आम बजट देश का रविवार के दिन पेश किया जा रहा है। आप कुछ कह रहे थे जनार्दन जी।
हाँ, तो वो दूसरा जो पानी का संकल्प है, आप गाँव में या कि जिस तरह का पीने का पानी का भी शुद्ध पानी नहीं मिल पा रहा है लोगों को, उसके लिए पानी की आवश्यकता है। हर घर को शुद्ध जल मिले, उसके लिए जल जीवन मिशन के तहत हर घर नल का काम चल रहा है और लगभग 12 करोड़ परिवारों में ये पहुंच भी चुका है। पिछले साल 1 करोड़ से ज़्यादा परिवारों में पानी पहुंचा है। तो मेरी प्राथमिकता तो मैं जिस इलाके से आता हूं और देश के लिए भी वो आवश्यक है, कृषि के क्षेत्र में उत्पादन की वृद्धि और उसकी गुणवत्ता, पौष्टिकता, उसके साथ ही साथ दूध उत्पादन, मछली उत्पादन और शुद्ध जल और मकान लोगों को रहने के लिए। जिस तरह से 4 करोड़ मकान दिए गए हैं, बनाए गए, पिछले वर्ष ही 32 लाख मकानों का निर्माण हुआ है। तो अगर हमने खेती बढ़ा दी, दूध बढ़ा दिया, पानी दे दिया लोगों को, शुद्ध पानी और मकान मिल जाए, तो इससे स्वास्थ्य सुविधाओं का भी तेज़ी से विस्तार हुआ है। जिस तरह से हर ज़िले को एक मेडिकल कॉलेज देने का अभियान चल रहा है, उससे स्वास्थ्य सेवाओं में बहुत भारी वृद्धि होने की संभावना है। और इसके साथ ही जिस तरह से आयुष्मान भारत के तहत लगभग 11 करोड़ लोगों को राहत मिली है, पिछले साल ही लगभग 1.5 करोड़ लोगों को इसका लाभ मिला है। तो इस तरह से स्वास्थ्य के क्षेत्र में, शिक्षा के क्षेत्र में भी जिस तरह से नए नए द्वार खुल रहे हैं और विदेशों से जो हमारा टाई अप चल रहा है, ये जो स्वतंत्र एग्रीमेंट हो रहे हैं और अभी EU के साथ जिस तरह के शिक्षा के स्तर को बढ़ाने के लिए को प्राथमिकता दी गई है, इससे मैं समझता हूँ कि शिक्षा, स्वास्थ्य और कृषि, पानी, आवास, इन सारे चीज़ों की आवश्यकता है और देश का नेतृत्व, हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी का जो विजन है, वो मैं समझता हूँ कि देश की आकांक्षाओं के अनुरूप, गरीबों की आकांक्षाओं के अनुरूप, ग्रामीणों की अपेक्षाओं के अनुरूप और जो स्लम्स एरिया हैं उनकी अपेक्षाओं के अनुरूप ये देश आगे बढ़ रहा है।
बिल्कुल। नरेश जी, इसके अलावा हमने देखा जब किसानों की बात हुई, महिला, युवा और खासकर स्किल डेवलपमेंट को लेकर, क्योंकि तेजी से अब डिमांड बढ़ रही है मार्केट में, टेक्नोलॉजी ड्रिवन हम हो रहे हैं, AI अब बहुत तेजी से मैं कहूँ एक अपॉर्चुनिटी बनकर आ रहा है, जिसे कई लोग एक चैलेंज के रूप में भी देख रहे हैं। तो स्किल डेवलपमेंट पर और खासकर युवाओं की ट्रेनिंग पर फोकस ये कितना अहम रहने वाला है?
निश्चित रूप से स्किल डेवलपमेंट पर पिछले बार के बजट में भी बड़ा फोकस था। 1000 ITI को अपग्रेड करने का काम और युवा कौशल में, कौशल विकास में इंडस्ट्री के अंदर उनको ट्रेनिंग हो, इसके लिए ट्रेनिंग सपोर्टेड स्कीम लाई गई युवा कौशल में और अनेक हजारों युवकों को उसका लाभ मिला है। परसों ही श्रम मंत्री जी ने पार्लियामेंट में बताया कि पिछले वर्ष 2 करोड़ 20 लाख लोगों को रोजगार मिला है। तो इसलिए आवश्यकता स्किल लेबर की, स्किल एम्प्लॉयमेंट की ज़्यादा है, क्योंकि विश्व के साथ compete करना है, एक्सपोर्ट बढ़ रहा है, हमारा मैन्युफैक्चरिंग बढ़ रहा है, तो इंडस्ट्री के अनुरूप टैलेंट मिले, इसके लिए बहुत फोकस पिछले बजट में भी था और इस बजट में भी होगा।
स्किल के साथ साथ शिक्षा भी वो क्षेत्र है जिस पर जोर है सरकार का और उसको लेकर भी बड़ा रिफॉर्म जो है NEP के माध्यम से किया गया है। लेकिन फिर भी जो विशेषज्ञ हैं शिक्षा क्षेत्र के, जनार्दन जी, उनका मानना है कि GDP का तकरीबन 6% तक इस पर खर्च होना चाहिए, उससे थोड़ा सा दूर हैं। 6% तो नहीं, लेकिन कुछ बढ़ने की संभावना?
निश्चित रूप से जिस तरह से शिक्षा का ज्ञान के नए क्षेत्र विकसित बढ़ रहे हैं और केवल अब शिक्षा कुछ सीमित पाठ्यक्रमों तक सीमित नहीं रह गई है। अब तो नई शिक्षा नीति के माध्यम से विषयों का अध्ययन सरल हुआ है, तो इस तरह और इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में भी तेज़ी आई है। विश्वविद्यालय बहुत तेज़ी से बढ़े हैं, महाविद्यालयों की संख्या दुगनी से ज़्यादा हुई है। तो मैं समझता हूँ कि शिक्षा के क्षेत्र में भी कुछ वृद्धि की संभावना से इनकार नहीं किया जा सकता।
बिल्कुल, तो शिक्षा पर भी खास फोकस रह सकता है। और जनार्दन जी और नरेश जी, फिलहाल हम आप दोनों को शुक्रिया कहेंगे, आप लोग हमारे साथ जुड़े, समय निकाला, आप कार्रवाई में हिस्सा लेना है, इसलिए आप लोग को इजाज़त देना चाहेंगे। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया हमारे साथ जुड़ने।
शुक्रिया के साथ साथ शुभकामनाएं भी। धन्यवाद। बहुत महत्वपूर्ण दिन है देश के लिए और जैसा कि हम लोग बातचीत कर रहे हैं और हमारे विशेषज्ञ भी कह रहे हैं कि केवल देशवासियों का नहीं, पूरे विश्व का ध्यान हमारे आम बजट पर है। कुछ देर में वित्त मंत्री निर्मला सीतारमण 9वीं बार लगातार आम बजट पेश करेंगी देश का और इस समय कैबिनेट की बैठक चल रही है और कैबिनेट से हरी झंडी मिलने के पश्चात संसद भवन के अंदर लोकसभा के भीतर पहुंचेंगे और लोकसभा में पेश किया जाएगा आम बजट 2026-27।
बिल्कुल, तो हर वर्ग अपने अपने लिए उम्मीदें लगाकर बैठा है। प्रियदर्शी, अगर हम देखें तो जो भी कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर हुआ है, पूंजीगत व्यय के जरिए निजी निवेश को लगातार गति मिल रही है अब देश के अंदर और यही कहा जा रहा है कि राजकोषीय घाटे को संतुलित करने के लिए, डेट को कम से कम करने के लिए निजी निवेश को बढ़ाना जरूरी होगा। NHAI को लेकर अगर हम देखें तो उसने डेट को अपना आधे से भी कम पर लेकर चले आए हैं। बहुत सारे अच्छे संकेत इसके हमें दिखे हैं। ऐसे में क्या लग रहा है कि बजट के जरिए निजी क्षेत्र और ज्यादा क्या मोटिवेट हो सकता है, क्योंकि अभी वो उतना आक्रामक नहीं है जितना जिसकी उम्मीद की जा रही है?
तो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर फाइनेंसिंग का जब बोल रहे हैं कि
कोई भी देश चाहेगा कि उसका डेट लेवल इतना बढ़ ना जाए कि वो मैनेज नहीं कर पाए। अभी जो इंडिकेशन इकोनॉमिक सर्वे से मिला है कि डेट काफी हद तक वेल मैनेज्ड है इंडिया